Hidden is the 10th full-length album from Italian sludge slash psychedelic doom metal band Ufomammut, however you'd pronounce their name. This is a very well-known fixture in both the Italian sludge metal and doom metal community as a whole, as well as a very well-respected experimental psychedelic doom metal band overall. They're certainly very well known and a contemporary of groups like Yob and Electric Wizard in some respects, and that they appeared at a time where psychedelic doom metal, sludge metal, all these things needed something new, and this was a band that always brought something very original, as well as their own visual style. Their visual presentation has always been a big part of what they do. They have their own kind of design firm centered around this, and that's where I first ran into their work because I was collecting Paul Chain records, and they did the cover for Sign from Space as well as the layout. Around that time, they had formed this band and put out a couple of records that I wouldn't know about until later, always seeing them as a contemporary of early Electric Wizard, less so like the late 90s and more so the early 2000s, as well as, bands like Grief, Yob, and Dark Buddha Rising. Now, a lot of the times people really overemphasize the almost like a shamanic or a spiritual style to their rhythms. The thing to know is that they're always focused on droning and psychedelic ideas. They're best known for working a lot of sound effects and general a pulsing bass-driven sound to their style, which is most often associated with sludge, but forms around doom metal riffs. And I wouldn't say old school doom metal, but they do have a little bit of that in their work otherwise. This is the 10th album of this band. It is the second full-length album since they split and reform, and it does feature their newer drummer, the band has undergone a sort of second life that was indicated through Venus, where they have rethought their approach, they've changed things, and found a new direction because of the large amount of change that occurred between 2018 and 2021. So if you have a lot of nostalgia for this band, you'll still find that the core songwriting, the basic feeling of the band, and a lot of their signatures are all intact on their last few records. But this one is best to put into context of two specific releases. First, their 8th album, and Venus, which is a much more different direction taken. It was more of a psychedelic droning jam session, which is more related to the Eve album back in 2010 and some of their early work. So before I get lost in the weeds of their discography, I'll do my best not to. We'll cut into a song here and get a sense for at least what part of the album sounds like and the sonic luster of the whole thing. Now, the challenge for me with a record like this is the level of detail involved, because I'm used to pecking at the tiniest details on overworked records that are in the extreme metal sector, but for a record like this, I have to turn off my brain and work with the different layers of rhythms that one would notice is more on a subconscious level, and the accoutrement of it is not really the point. So when we get to their use of sound effects and atmosphere and the way they build it, it's part of the full effect of it, but really the progression of this full-length album and the way that it works on two different sides is really more of the point and what you'll grasp of it as you sit with it and take it in patiently as an experience. So if you're looking for rapid fire riffs and big progressive movements, this is not that. This is the type of music that drones on a big riff and carries it through a 10-minute song. And that's what they do for equally parsed sides, which start with about a 10 or 11-minute song, work down to an 8 or 9-minute song, and finish with a 4-minute song. And so that's the way the two sides are split up on this record, and this feels like an intensifying loop. It feels like it's moving towards repeating waves that are faster and faster. Otherwise, we do cut to more riffs and more tuneful songs at the end of each side. That means that a song like Kismet is a sort of intermediate between the more patient 10-minute piece that opens the album and a continuation of that groove. But as we move to the Spitter or Spider, that's where the main pulse of that side realizes. So that will take some patience. Repeat that process twice and you're through the whole thing. The way I saw the two sides was that the first side has much more of a classic 90s sludge metal feeling to it. The second half has more of a psychedelic doom feeling to it. It's the best of both worlds in terms of this band, and overall I feel like this record intends to show both sides and how they can work together, how they can be separate, and how that works in a full length. So in a lot of ways this reinforces the wizened spirit of this band, the way that it has carried through over the decades as they celebrate their 25th anniversary, and it gives us exemplar showing of what they've always been all about, without leaning too heavily into one direction or another. So it's not a compromise, it's not a separation of ideas. It's sort of the entity realizing itself from within. It's extrapolating all the things that they are in terms of forging this identity over the years and now representing it. The challenge is, of course, doing something for 25 years and then writing a record that represents yourself. And I think that was what the challenge was for this record. And I think they rose to it pretty well, because this record, for me, the first thing I thought and the last thing I thought when listening to it was that this is classic Ufomammut. And it really is their own sound, and it's something they've developed over the years, and I really appreciate it the more that I spend time with them. So their discography is daunting, but I think this is a good place to start, and just a solid record overall that I really enjoyed my time with. It's a pure pleasure list too, and it's something I enjoyed quite a bit. That releases on May 17th. You can listen to 3 or 4 songs from the record right now, and go ahead and read my review if you'd like more of my thoughts on these specifics.
Stress!